What's good, y'all, and welcome to my first impressions for Moon Knight. Bro. 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 From one episode. One episode. One. Uno. One. Not only is this the greatest first episode out of all of the Marvel Netflix, we'll talk about Marvel Netflix in a second, of the Disney Plus Marvel shows, but I dare say, from just this one episode, this is already my favorite of all the Marvel Disney Plus shows, and it ain't even a conversation, a contest. Y'all know I love Hawkeye, and I said it was my favorite. Yeah, Moon Knight has now lapsed that show 5 times. Oh, this episode was that fucking good. Like, bro, I was hyped. You guys know how hyped I was for the show. Moon Knight was like #1 on my Marvel characters that deserve a Netflix series video I did like 4 years ago. I literally completely forgot I even made that video until like a while ago when I found it, when I found it on accident. So I mentioned it there. I mentioned how I want to read his comics. Then of course when the new series got announced and came out, I started doing the comic reactions for it. And if you guys have been watching those comic reactions for those issues, hell, I've even talked about this on my Twitter, you guys know how in love I am with the new comic. Jade McCade's Moon Knight run has been fucking spectacular. The artwork is some of the greatest artwork I've ever seen in any comic book. Like, bro, this shit fucking rivals Berserk in terms of its artwork, man. Like, bro, this artwork goes way too hard, man. But I've been hyped, and then of course the show, and then the trailers, and everything. I was hyped. But you guys know I was always cautiously optimistic. Because as I mentioned before, Moon Knight was the perfect character for the Netflix series. Like I said, he was #1 on that list for a reason. Because he was the perfect character to get that treatment. He was the perfect character to join the Netflix series. He was the perfect character for that universe, for that style. For Marvel Netflix, he was perfect. Obviously, we know what happened in Marvel Netflix. And you guys know that when this was announced for Disney Plus, how cautious I was in the show. Would they fuck it up? Would this actually be on par with the comics? Would it get the tone right? Would it be akin to the Netflix? I even said in all the other reactions and all the other videos I did on the show before this first episode dropped that this show needs to be like the Netflix series for it to work. And as I just mentioned, the show was fucking awesome, and I actually ended up in some way getting my wish. Because I feel like this show is probably the closest we'll ever see the Disney Plus shows ever get to the Netflix series in terms of that style and that tone. Because this show is very bloody. You do get some gore. Not necessarily seeing the gore, but you see the aftermath, where Steven is covered in blood. You see the aftermath. And then you got of course like the last part of the episode, which we'll talk about that in a separate spoiler discussion. But also, this show is very unlike the movies in that sense, where the show is not scared to be stylized. The cinematography. I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I keep going on, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get started with this ride, man, and then we'll gush about the shows in a little bit. Bro, yo, this first episode was fucking awesome, man. As a Moon Knight fan, I am very pleased, and I am looking forward to the next 5 episodes. So yeah, hopefully this isn't some one season shit. They better give my man multiple seasons. But anyway, let's get jumping. So the show stars, of course, Oscar Isaac, Gaspari Ullier, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Ethan Hawke, and the plot of Moon Knight is Stephen Grant and mercenary Mark Spencer investigate the mysteries of the Egyptian god from the inside of the same body. Now, First off, like the first thing I mentioned a little bit earlier before I started getting all the crazy, I gotta talk about the cinematography of the show. This is without the best looking of all the Marvel Netflix series. Fuck your Lokis, fuck your WandaVisions. Hawkeye looked pretty good, all things considered, but no. This show actually tries. Because if you guys, especially if you watch High Top, you guys know that the MCU isn't the most stylistic, especially when in comparison to stuff like the Batman. The MCU has a style to it, and they don't try to become more stylistic like the Batman. Or hell, even the Marvel Netflix series has it, because you guys know how gorgeous those shows look, man. Jesus, when I was rewatching fucking Daredevil season 1 before they got kicked off Netflix, I'm like, bro, why does this show look so good? But the cinematography in the show looks amazing. Like, I loved how they played with reflections and mirrors. You got triangles appearing throughout the episode, obviously representing the Egyptian, the pyramids and shit. But it looked so good, man. Especially when they're like one of them. Like when we see reflections of the water, when we see Steven like on like the top part, which is he's like reflecting to like the bottom half in the water as he's like walking away and shit, man. It looks incredible, man. Seriously. So many great shots in the show, man. And like I said, the show definitely gets pretty gory. At least we see the aftermath. I don't know if we're actually going to straight up see any of like the blood and bludgeoning actually happening in this series when Mark is beating the piss out of something like he does in the comics, where it gets pretty freaking brutal at times. I don't know if they'll go that far. Probably not. I mean, for God's sake, I'm sure y'all have heard about Disney Plus censoring Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney Plus recently, and then they said like, oh, we'll fix it, saying that it was some server error or something. I'm like, please, you expect me to believe that shit? But I don't know, man. I'm hoping this show gets gory. I'm hoping we get to see blood on Mark's hands as he beats the shit out of somebody. But hey, at least we see blood. At least there is blood. So I get that much. And that's where I'd say, like, kind of definitely, where I feel like this definitely takes a lot from the Netflix series, because it definitely has a very cinematography style is very stylistic, like a lot of the Netflix series were. It's definitely definitely isn't scared to get at least a little bit gory. It's always not gonna get as gory as a Netflix series, because they're not gonna go hard rated R with this show. But we got the blood, man. But one thing that also surprised me the most about this show is that the best way I can describe this show is, imagine Venom with the style of the Marvel Netflix, because, bro, this show straight up turns into Venom in like the midpoint, where you have Steven being like, I guess, controlled either by Mark or by Khonshu, and start telling, oh great, the idiot is back in control again. And it's a funny shit. It's like very similar to the humor from Venom, when Venom would take over Eddie's body and shit. Like, I was shocked they actually went that route with it, man, and I was laughing my ass off, man. This show was fucking hilarious. Especially when we got that Khonshu Venom type stuff, man. That was awesome. That was probably like one of the best parts of the episode. But another thing that I think the show does exceptionally well, this is like probably the last thing I'm going to talk about with the visuals and everything before we actually get to the actual cast and stuff. But God, this episode was so fucking good. I gotta say, I loved how they're playing with Mark's dissociative identity disorder, where like you'll see Mark, where you see Steve and kind of like freaking out, like, oh, what's going on, and then they'll just like instantly like jump cut to to the aftermath, where like Steven, when he's then covered in blood, or he's in his room and then he's like in the car holding a gun or something. I loved how they did that, and I thought it looked really cool to make you just as disoriented as Steven is, which I really like. And I'm definitely going to be very curious to know, or to see, at least for myself anyway, as the show progresses, to compare this, how they do the DID stuff versus how Glass did it with, Kevin Wendell-Crumb and the Horde. I'm going to be very interested to see how they're doing versus how M. Night did it. It's going to be interesting to see how these two will contrast with each other with their interpretation of DID, because I loved how they did it in Glass, and I loved how they did it in Split. It looked amazing, and I already mentioned how much I love James McAvoy's performance in there, man. Fantastic. But I loved how they're doing it, for where instead of like them shift like where they're trying to get the light, where when we see like James see him struggling, they were just jumps cut. I like that, man. I thought it looked cool, though. Definitely gonna be interested to see how this show is good, how they're gonna be handling DID stuff versus how it was done in Split and Glass and their interpretation. But okay, enough me gushing about the fucking visuals for a second. Let's talk about the cast. Now, from the little bits of the cast we get, which we don't get that too many of the characters, we got to talk. Oscar Isaac is fucking brilliant as Mark Spencer. He is amazing. I loved him when we see him as Mark. I love him as when we see him as Steven. He is phenomenal, man. He is phenomenal in the show, and I can't wait to see more of him in this show, man. He was amazing. From the little bits we got to see of Ethan Hawke, I thought he was also really good, and I think he'll probably end up being one of the better villains we get in Phase 4 for the MCU, man. And because I like what we see from him now. Now, and another thing that's kind of interesting is just, like I said, I loved how the show played with DID and you and the audience and the show making you as disoriented as making the audience as distorted as Steven is. Like I said, where the constant jump cutting, where like for one thing's happened, then boom, Mark, then boom, Steven's in another location, or like blood is suddenly all over him. Shit, I loved how they handled that stuff, man. But another thing I loved was kind of keeping up the mystery and everything, and how I'm trying to figure out, like, oh, who is this? Now, sure, someone like me that knows the comics, who knows who Khonshu is, and, like, has a basic grasp of Moon Knight's backstory and origins, I know this shit. I can fill in the blanks already. I'm filling in the blanks already. But I liked how the show is somewhat trying to keeping this mystery of, like, who is Mark Spencer? Who is Steven? Who is all this? Who is Khonshu? Even though they haven't straight up called him Khonshu yet. At least I don't think they've called him Khonshu yet. But obviously you see Khonshu. But, which I gotta say, fucking love Khonshu's design. He looks awesome, and I love his voice. Great shit. Like I said, I was kind of surprised when they went the Venom route with it, but I like that. And I'm low-key kind of hoping we might see a little bit more of the Khonshu as Venom type stuff in the rest of the later parts in the other episodes of the season, but we'll have to wait and see. But I like what they did with the first episode. Yeah. I think that's about everything I can talk about, with obviously going into spoiler-free territory. So I'm gonna give you guys my final verdict before we jump right in to the final part, where we get into spoilers. We're basically just gonna talk about like the last minute or so of the episode, because I got to, man. It's fucking awesome. But yeah, definitely check this show out if you guys haven't already. If you're a fan of Moon Knight and were concerned about Marvel and how they were gonna handle it, and you were like me, where you wish he got the Netflix treatment, you're good. This is probably the closest we'll ever see any of the Disney Plus series get to the Netflix series in that tone, in that style. But they're doing a great job so far in this first episode, man, and I think they're going to keep this up for the rest of the season. We'll have to wait and see, but already I am extremely in love with the show. But yeah, overall, my final verdict for this episode, if you couldn't guess already, it's a 10 out of fucking 10, lady. So, as I said, this is going to be the end of the spoilers-free discussion, and now we're going to get into spoilers discussion right now. So if you haven't seen the episode, you don't want to get spoiled, leave now. Everyone else, let's go. Okay, so so the final part of the episode, Steven is confronted by Arthur. And they're meeting up, and he's trying to run away from him, and he sticks like this dog on him or whatever. And he's trying to get away from him. He eventually locks himself in this bathroom, and then Mark is in the reflection somehow talking to Steven, telling him, hey man, you need to let me take over control, give me control. And then Steven eventually does, and then of course he transforms into Moon Knight, man. I love the suit design. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in some of the other trailer reactions that have come out recently, that I love the suit design. I love it. And yeah, but when he puts on the suit, the creature jumps right in. This was like the most Moon Knight thing ever. It was literally the most badass thing. After, I don't know what, the camera goes away from him, but eventually you see the creatures trying to straight up escape Moon Knight, and Moon Knight drags his ass back, and they're like, "Nah, motherfucker, you will take this beating," and just starts beating the ever-living shit out of this creature as he walks towards the camera, just like in the trailers. And that is where the episode ends, man. I'm like, bro, that is the most badass thing I've ever seen in my fucking life, man. Seriously, bro. That is Moon Knight. Everything in that last minute and a half of the episode is Moon Knight. Everything I love about Moon Knight can be encapsulated in that last minute. Seriously, this show is fucking awesome, man. If I had to have, you wanted me to complain about something, if you wanted me to have a flaw with something, we didn't get an intro for this episode. If I had to complain, I would we got an intro, but hey, we'll probably get that in the second episode. Hopefully it's not another text, only intro. I'm sick and tired of shows using those. Please give me a real intro like the Netflix series. But we'll have to wait and see on that if we even get one. But yeah, there's my flaw. If you guys wanted me to complain about something, but this is as perfect as you can get for a first episode, man. So yeah, check this show out. It's fucking awesome. Oh, Moon Knight is in good hands, man. I'm so happy I get to see that, man. Anyway, guys, that is where we're gonna end the video off. Sorry for the rambling and all over the place, but bro, as soon as I saw this episode, I had to hit record and just blah, get my thoughts. Hopefully, I'll be a little bit more coherent when the show finishes up when I do my full season review of it. But anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like it, if you did, subscribe if you're new. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you like it. Links out in the description box below. And as always, come back for more. See you guys next time.